sheets, right? So the like physics, like Annamaya Kosha,
Five
Manomaya,
bodies, yeah.
five bodies, yes, right. So this biomagnetism, I guess, is an expression of it's expressed in all these bodies, right? In different ways, like in Manomayas. Uh, Maybe I'm understanding differently. So can you elaborate on
Okay.
that? Like how, what is the
So
role in biomagnetism?
magnetism is something um, where you have an attraction and a repulsion force. Okay, physically speaking, centripetal and centrifugal force. Anything anything that spills out, where it gets repelled. Anything that is attracted to the center is attraction. Okay, a magnetism only happens when there is an attraction and a repulsion, an expulsion and an inclusion. Okay, so what happens is each living being that was born when we did the Brahmanyanam course, some of you have not, but some of you have known. In the Brahmanyanam, what Maharishi teaches is like there is a thought that forms a wave. The wave takes two forms. One, it shrinks to itself. Other, it expands itself through. It gives a beautiful example. I know most people would know here is like when you sharpen a knife on a spinning wheel. Okay, so in India we used to have this a nice pedal-based spinning rotor, where my parents would use to take the knife and get it sharpened. So you take the knife, the stone rotates with the pedal, and then you put the knife on top of it. There's two things happens. One, the knife sharpens, which means it goes on to itself, and then whatever is the excessive sparks out in a beautiful sparkly flame. So we used to run behind the person who sharpens the knife. I mean, those are trades and traits that's vanishing these days. I wish this nostalgic thing. I wish I could have my children find those beautiful things. But anyway, so to give you an example analogy, when the stone rotates and then you put the metal on top of it to sharpen it, two things happens. The blades sharpen goes almost as thin as the atom. Whatever is excessive that's not needed is spilled out as a fire. Um, so that is kind of what happens to every single particle. Anything that shrinks itself to itself becomes particle. Anything that is out goes out in a wave form. Okay. Some of them that get shrink to itself is attracted towards it. Some of them that it does not shrink to itself gets spilled out or expelled out. This process of attraction and repulsion is called magnetism. Now, where does this magnetism work? Whether in a living being or in a non-living being is where Maharishi coined a word. If that magnetism is produced in a living being, we call it a biomagnetism. Bio is living. When this magnetism happens outside or a non-living being's existence, we call it electromagnetism or just in general terms, we call it as magnetic force, an attraction and a repulsion force. Okay. So now what happens is, as I said, this grinding force, I wish I could show you my research work. I haven't completed it. My code is working. So I tried to fit this into a normal distribution. Most of you would have known what a normal distribution is. It's a bell curve where you have a tail, then an average which goes on the top, and then it goes down to another tail, to the head. So the middle portion, as it gets to middle closer and closer, the expression becomes more and more higher. And your mean is at the median is at the very center, where it is at the peak or the highest, where most of the energies are simulated or accumulated. Okay. So what happens is when we as an individual try to generate this attractive and repulsive force, it directly links to what we call as our life force particles emission. Okay. The life force particle emits energy. Okay. That's life force particles energy. That we're talking about life force particles energy field. Um, uh, The meditation starts around 8:30 Eastern, Ashwinji, and then we get into this question and answer after when the meditation is done. Today we did 9 center meditation. So this attractive and repulsive force that consistently produced when the life force particle generates this life force. Okay, this life force, if you would want to know, I have this instrument also, which I'm trying to do and get data on myself. When I wake up in the morning, I put the instrument on my head, I do the meditation, calculate how far my brain waves are moving and how far the brain waves are stuck to me in different meditation. I sit myself and then I say I'm doing Agna between my eyebrow and calculate the brain waves. Then I go to Turiam, calculate the brain waves, went to Turiyatitam, calculate how far the brain waves are going. It's a long experiment that I'm working on, almost a year worth of data. Slowly, how the brains are, depending on how our mindset works, how the life force particle along with the thought process works. Okay, so this is an interesting scenario. When I sit like normal, like the scenario where my brain waves are very, very active because I have to take the waves and then transform that into words and then express that. The waves are very high and it's more accumulated towards the center, okay, a normal bell curve. As and when I think about sleep mode, when I go to sleep mode, which I call the tail mode in my normal distribution, where the tail is much, much smaller and the brainwave's thought process is very less. As and when I go into higher levels of meditation, and again, it goes up during my normal time, and then it slowly goes down to again the head wind, where it goes into. We generally work on the normal bell curves, 95% of the what we call confidence level of the bell curve. So that's usually what we operate. When we are in an extremely zonal situation, our thought process, attractive and repulsive force, is on the top 95%. When we are in extremely agitative mode, we are at the bottom 95%, where our energy depletes much faster. Okay. Most of our productive time, we go at the peak, at the center. That's when usually happens during Brahma Muhurtam time, where it's morning 4 to 8 or evening 4 to 8. So during that time, the peak of your energy level goes up. Again, this is with the data personally on me. I haven't expanded this experiment on anybody else. So during that time, the attraction and repulsive force, depending on where you are putting your attractive and repulsive force, your life force particle either gets attracted back to you, going out and coming in, or it gets dissipated all along in the world. Okay, now your question is, how does this affect the 5 different bodies? Okay, when I operate on this physical body, you see this physical layer around me. Okay, this physical layer that happens around me, and you only see the physical boundary, like that is my boundary, and then that's the boundary here and there. Okay, what in this boundary gets attracted and repelled is the 5 elements that usually links to one of these chakras. Okay, the base Muladhara is the solid element. Swadhisthana slightly above is liquid, and Manipura around our tummy is fire element. Heart is air, and Vishuddhi, the throat, is the sky element, or the 96% of the particle. So how does this sky element exist in the throat? So biologically speaking, there is a vacuum that runs around our body. Vacuum is not that there doesn't exist anything, okay? Earlier research work, we thought that vacuum is an empty space where nothing exists. But now, as things go further, what we found out is vacuum is a place where things happen at a very rapid pace that we won't be able to measure it. Okay, it produces the force and destroys itself at a very, very, very rapid pace, which Maharishi called it as Vedan, or the sky element, which is what the 96% of the universe's existence. So when we do Shakti Kalam or the meditation on the universal magnetic field, we align our thought process so minute that we get to that vacuum state through our mind's thought process. So now, when I say Muladhara, where I go to the base of my spine, there is one kind of meditation that happens. But then I slowly move into an astral existence where I look only on the energy field that happens between myself, between Swadhisthana and Vishuddhi on the throat chakra. Then what happens is we slowly go into how these are generated part. Okay, so the second part where I talked about is the astral body. The third part we talk about is the base of the causal body can be found through your agna or between your eyebrow. Okay, the causal body, manonmaya. Then to the top of it, between this and this area, the thurium, where the time ceases to exist, is where your causal body or manonmaya operates. Why does it operate there? Is because that's where most of our karmic existence from our genetic center operates and expresses itself. From there, it boils down to our agna, and from the agna, the rest of our senses gets activated. How they activate is again depends on whether it's a sky element, which is touch feel, whether it's an air element, the smell that we have, whether it is the heat that we find through our tummy, biotummy, or swadhisthana, the flowing of the energy field, or the solidity, or the muladhara. So these is controlled. So we have control on these three bodies. Moment we talk about Dwadasangam or 12 feet above, Dwa is 2, Dasa means 10, 2 plus 10 Sangam, which is about 1 feet above the head. What happens is we are operating outside our body, we start operating around our aura. So I've told you in the past where we operate the aura is where if you want to find out the aura of a person, stand in front of the mirror. We have a meditation exercise that Maharishi teaches. Stand in front of the mirror, look at you in the morning for about a minute, and then close your eyes. You see the aura around us. So now what happens is this biomagnetic force, which is generated through the life force particle that is generated within me, starts mixing with the external body or Vijnanamaya Kosha or scientific body, which is around me, the surroundings that I have. How far you can expand this attraction and repulsion. So imagine I'm standing like this and somebody is coming closer and closer to me. If that person is very, very close to me, my family members, my brothers, my sisters, my children, I would not feel the uncomfortness. I would accept that because more and more my harmonious existence of my Vijnanamaya Kosa, the outside body, is harmonious with my family members. Unless, of course, there is a difference of opinion with my family member where I try to avoid that, where I'm in a very angry mode on that. Other than that, what happens is this attractive force is very conductive. And that's the reason why when you are in a crowded train, you get more irritated because you are not sure what is the other person's aura is. But moment you see your friend or a person who you know closer, you start smiling. Oh, and say, like, okay, even though I'm congested here, but I know somebody who I can identify myself as the person comes closer to you, you feel much relaxed because your aura and the person's aura through this Vijnanamaya Korsa works together. Okay. How does this Vijnanamaya Korsa and your body operates is what we call as prana, or prana existence through our breathing. We breathe in, we breathe in the aura of the other person into our body. We breathe out our aura outside. That's where we call it as pranayama as the first part of our meditation, where we do the pranayama. We harmonize what is us and what is outside us. And then you become Anandamaya Kosa is where how your causal body, which is operating between this part, gets into an absolute space existence where the beginning and the end is understood by the conscious existence, not by the operations. Till about Vijnanamaya Kosa or the universal magnetic field, we are operating. When it goes to Anandamaya Kosa, everything is encased in within itself. If you think about a set of values, it's the universal set where everything is understood as is exists, which we call it as static, Shivakala, or absolute space. And that's how these five bodies operate and work together in a beautiful existence. And as long as this is harmonized, you will not feel anything that is going out of you. You will feel an absolute blissful existence. There is few times you can feel that is when you are in a zonal mode, you're working or you're operating a karmic existence or a thought process, and it absolutely aligns with your body, it absolutely aligns with your mind, it absolutely aligns with your conscious existence, your soul aligns with the external body, and then it also adheres to universal law of existence. When you are in that mode, that's when you feel the blissful existence. Okay. Now, there is a saying, right? Ignorance is bliss, but we still seek knowledge for power. Okay. So, why ignorance is bliss is because when you start meditating or when you start into the existence of being in a state, if you start thinking about all these things, what happens is you will be stuck in here and not understanding the existence of universal being. Okay. I can talk about all these fields. I can show you my experiments, my data over a period of 1 year, how my brainwaves exist and everything. These are all good for statistical appearance, good to reach out to community, to attract them in finding what is going on within us. But the experience I experienced while doing all this, I cannot express in my word. It's the other side of the coin, which is the deep dark state. When we are in the absolute space, we experience that oneness of both the coins, side of the coin, merging into one existence where everything starts and everything ends without even existing. How is that possible? It can only be experienced. There are scenarios where people just say, oh, it just exists. You have to just go. Is that an escapism, or is that something that people don't know, just avoid and put it in there? See, even for instance, right, it could be a controversial statement, what I'm saying right now. There is no God that exists in this world. God is something invented by human for his or her own inconvenience. What is God? There's nothing like God. And then somebody say like, oh, I believe in God. Somebody says, I don't believe in God. It's a very controversial statement. Yes, it is. Does God exist? I say, no, God doesn't exist. And if God doesn't exist, I'll say, yeah, God doesn't exist. There's a beautiful saying by Buddha, right? I've shared this story also when somebody went and asked Buddha, who has been an atheist lifelong, and asked Buddha the question, um, I'm not sure. People say that you are an enlightened one. To me, God doesn't exist. Is it true or false? He simply said, yes, it's true. God doesn't exist. And then around the mid of the day, somebody went in, asked who has been an adherent devotee of some form of God. And he said, all along my life, I believe God existed. Do you ratify my statement? He said, yes, God exists. And then there are people like us who was confused. We don't know whether God exists or not. If God exists, I don't want to be on the wrong side of the God. If God doesn't exist, I don't want to be on the wrong side preaching something that doesn't exist. Went to Buddha and asked the third person, say, I'm not sure if God exists or not. I'm not sure if God doesn't exist or not, but I want to know. He said, Buddha put his hand on his shoulder and said, come, let's explore together. We are in the third state. If you adherently believe God doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. If adherently believe that God exists, exists. And the third state is whether we don't know whether God exists or not. That's when we go into this state of existence. Even in my bell curve, when I do meditation, I feel that God doesn't exist. The tail goes so small. If I believe God exists, the tail exists. But when I'm operating with my existence of living, it goes up and down in a beautiful waveform in my meditative state when I give auto suggestions to myself saying, there is no God existing. My wave goes down to so low. It does exist. Again, it's a tail, it's not zero. It exists. But when I say God exists, it again becomes a tail. But when I think about why am I operating like this, my brainwave starts going up and down, trying to work on one of these or the other. Someday I'll have the courage to show the entire thing in a presentation, explaining in a mathematical form, but I'm still not there yet to show it to general community because I'm still working on the simulation part. But maybe I'll show tidbits on these sessions, not on the next session, to see how it's projected out and how my brain waves have been working. So next, when my son turns 14 this year, I will try to work on his brainwave and see how it operates as a teen and calculate that and see how both converge or diverges. So that's how the individual body works. When you say biomagnetism, it's basically an energy field that we generate within ourselves. Maharishi simply said that biomagnetism. There are how many Vedas? Generally, they say four Vedas. One Veda, or how many forms of yoga? They say four forms of yoga. One is Bhakti Yoga, controlled surrendering. There is Jnana Yoga based on knowledge. There is Raja Yoga based on energy. There is Karma Yoga based on what you do. But eventually, everything ends in yoga, where it means you merge in or unionize yourself into one existence. That is what these bodies are. We operate ourselves saying, biologically, this is how I'm generating. But outside me is also comes and attracts and repels towards me. So when your biological body merges with this universal body, and then you become one big existence, that is the whole idea of the jnani. There's one way is this is a placebo meditation based on expansion going into infinity. There's also we do the shunya meditation, which is not generally taught, is going inwards towards ourselves, where we shrink our boundaries to such an extent that we don't even feel that we exist. In both the cases, we experience an ecstasy, the blissful state, and then goes beyond the blissful state. So now the question asked is, can I experience this blissful state? Can you explain this blissful state? Most people would escape answering that question, saying that no, I cannot do it. It is an experience only you have to experience. Nobody can tell. What I can tell is yes, it's a beautiful existence. We all can feel this amazing experience working through ourselves, but I cannot tell how you would experience and how I would experience it. Because the way I experience is through my karmic existence. The way you experience is through your karmic experience. When these karmic experience merge together, you meditate with me and I meditate with you together, that time we will find a common existence scenario. You meditate on your own, it depends on your surroundings. I meditate on my own, it depends on my surrounding. When we meditate together on one platform, that's when we will find a common existence. During that time, what the master says and what the student understands doesn't have to be operated through the five elements or five senses. It operates through, when I say five, there are five jnanendriyas, five karmendriyas. Karmendriya is the one where it's expressed. Jnanendriyas is where it's observed. Okay. In normal circumstances like us, the nature or God, whichever way you want to tell, gave us a nice platform where I can express through my karmendriyas. My mouth right now is my karmendriya. I'm expressing, and the breath I take each time in and out is my karmendriya, is beautifully aligned in such a way that my karmendriya operates and expresses what my brain, another karmendriya, takes my genetic center and manipulates this and sends out these signals out. You, as the jnanendriyas, hopefully, I assume that you are listening carefully to what I'm saying and not getting distracted too much. Your jnanendriyas, especially hearing and your skin. Again, when you do that, your skin also hears to the vibration, okay? Because everything happens to the sky element, which is the primordial of the 5 different elements. Operates and goes to your karmendriya brain, and then somehow it goes and stores down to your genetic center. Okay, then when you need it, it comes out automatically. This beautiful interaction happens in a spectrum, in a visual spectrum. It's the VIBGR, where it starts from violet all the way to red. In a sound spectrum, it's the hertz, how much hertz you can hear it works out. So this is nature's finite form of making ourselves understand. When we meditate, this finite form slowly becomes infinite. Okay? And that's what we try to do through Turiyathitam. In nine-center Turiyathitam, what we do is we operate from the base of the spine, which is the Muladhara, and then go all the way up to a state where nothing exists. Kind of a zero in an infinite form. You're searching zero in infinity. Okay, so this, while we are sitting on the Shakti Kalam or the universal magnetic field encasing all the stars and everything within ourselves, what is operating is what you need to start observing yourself. When we start observing what is operating within ourselves, what we have is we have an expanded state of existence. In general, in Sanskrit, they call it Vishwarupam, or Vishwa means the universal form. That universal form was described, or it's been described in many forms, in many scriptures, where it says, even in Christianity, right, when Jesus Christ became God existence, where he merged himself with God, his physical body vanished into the universal form. And people who saw him after that saw him as the entire universe was concentrated in one drop, which the world celebrates as Easter, where he was born again. But in general, if you look at Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tries to tell people that he forms the entire universe, shows how this entire universe is formed and how they operate. Millions of things form, die, and everything. Whoever saw that got terrified and said, like, no, I don't want to see this. I don't want to be in this existence. Similarly, different forms of this is expressed in different ways. If you go to West Bengal in India, they have this worship of Kali, or a god with 1,000 hands in dark, black, pitch black form, with the tongue, red tongue out all the way down to the tummy. You look at the form, it's so terrifying. Okay? People get feared out of those terrifying forms. Actually, that's one of the most beautiful form of expressing this existence of this world, which consists of all these 5 bodies we talk about. This beautiful red tongue that goes all the way down to the Muladhara expresses the existence of us. The 1,000 hands that forms around her tells how this Turiya existence, or the 1,000 petal that forms in the bud. Each one has a weapon in it. Okay, tells us how we can use this 1,000 petal into 1,000 different forms of protecting ourselves and expressing ourselves. Okay, the eyes are so white. Okay, she is very dark form. Okay, deep dark, where she observes everybody's karma into herself, explaining that you can use any of these 1,000 forms that I have opened myself as a weapon. Use that
get your karma to me, I can observe that. When you look at the form, it's terrifying. Okay? Black is a beautiful color where it takes everything and absorbs itself into it. White is a color which reflects everything. I don't want it, I'm just going to send it out. Black is where it absorbs. So imagine somebody who has so much love to you, who tells you this deep tongue that comes out all the way and shows the entire physical form, with this beautiful white eye saying, reflect your karma onto me. I, as a person, can absorb everything and destroy them so that I don't get it. In the hand, she holds a person's head with blood dripping down. Okay? Again, I'm telling you, it's a terrifying image if you look at it. But when you sit and meditate in front of that beautiful image, you will understand the entire universe existence, all these 5 bodies, has been taken into her in a beautiful love and compassionate existence that you will never be able to take your eyes out of it. And that is one of the expression. Similarly, each person have their own way of expressing their own existence and their own form of God. So now I can tell God exists or God doesn't exist. God does exist to help me out through this process. God doesn't exist because when I become infinite, there is no finite form to tell that it exists or doesn't exist, because existence doesn't matter. So in the same statement, I can say God exists because when I am down, there is something that expresses myself to make me finitely understand that I'm there to protect you. Whereas God doesn't exist because when I'm protecting you becomes we all protected ourselves into an infinite form, God doesn't exist. In this beautiful curve, when I operate, my center works very well where my peak goes as an I ego form. When the tail happens, either God doesn't exist or a God exists in a finite form. It's a very small thin line. I cannot express these two, but I can express what my top curve is. In general, when I work with it, this life force and the life force particle enhances my thought process through this. With that, I would like to conclude today's session. We move into the next one. Anyone has any questions?
Thank you so much. Very interesting, and good luck with whatever you do. Thank you.
And definitely. At some day, I will be definitely presenting it out in the next forum about life force and life force particle in a mathematical form. So, because I biased towards mathematics. So, but yeah, the experiment goes on. Life, we do our best. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Ashwinji.
Very, very interesting. And I think we both come from the similar background.
Yes.
Our thoughts sync very well. And I remember you talking about Brownian motion one of those days.
Yes.
In previous sessions, not this one. But at that time, I remembered when I was taking a course in my grad school in 1982. So I just wanted to give my thoughts in the sense that by doing all of these experiments on yourself and how the thought process is and how the reactions are and what part of the bell curve you are and so forth. Obviously, this is all you're trying to do something in a similar way most of the scientists do to, convey everything in terms of math or words or physical experiments. But the ultimate aim probably is to link with the consciousness, how the consciousness interacts with whatever experiments you are doing. And as I learned and understand from Swamiji is that there's nothing like random in nature. Everything works according to a uh, uh, unchanging law. The law of nature doesn't change. So I wanted to give you one reference that I recollected when you were talking about Brownian motion. And that reference had popped up when I was taking the grad school class in 1982 in random processes. So if you look at there's a physicist or a mathematician, his name is Mitchell Feigenbaum, and I probably will send you a reference also. So sure. Mitchell Feigenbaum, he was studying at MIT at that time, or he was a professor at MIT at that time. But he showed some of the mathematical functions. Okay, obviously, mathematical function is a set rule, that doesn't change. But if you keep on iterating on that mathematical function over and over, like you get the results, you feed it back, you get a result, feed it back, and it bifurcates and bifurcates and bifurcates, just like a nuclear reaction, So at some point, you will start feeling that it is all random. Actually, you started with a deterministic function. Mm-hmm. But when you keep on iterating on that function over and over, a time will come when you will lose the law with which that deterministic function has been operating, and you feel that it's all random. And I think that we, in our life also, we are the same way. We don't remember that deterministic law of nature, but we are at a point that we feel that everything is random, So that's all I wanted to.
Yep, definitely. So if you see the screen right now, if you're able to screen the screen, this is the simulation of my mind function over time increment.
Right.
Which I have measured through the instrument. And then I simulated the paths through geometric Brownian motion. This is log normal. I know people without mathematics background, please bear with us. Ashwinji can relate it. So I start with the 100 unit that Maharishi usually talks in Kayakalpa. And then throughout the day, over 1 year of my brainwaves function, there are days when I get too excited, which is on the top. There are days when I get too low in my experiment. And then I simulated through a log normal geometric motion. That's how my mind function sometimes operates around 350 or goes below 50. So during that time is when I'm in most depressive state. This is the time when I'm in a very excited state. So measured through and did a log normal distribution on it, and with the data that I have, and then simulated through Monte Carlo to generate this this chart.
So you use Monte Carlo to verify what your experiment is showing. Okay.
Yes. That's the randomness of my Monte Carlo with the geometric Brownian motion.
But when you do Monte Carlo, you start with some distribution which is log normal.
Yes.
But you still have to validate whether log normal distribution is the right distribution or not.
That's where I'm stuck right now, because my standard sigma is based on what I have right now, versus not the static information.
Okay.
So that's where I stand right now.
Yeah. And I also heard you saying that you use 95% confidence interval.
Yep.
Verify your distributions also. So great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Just a sneak peek of what I'm trying to do.
No, it's very, very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I'm impressed. But I'll send you the references of Mitchell Feigenbaum.
Definitely. Yeah, I would love to.
Because ultimately, you want to find out what is the law of nature that is invariant with time, space, and all of that.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ashwinji. Thanks for the input. Everything does matter. Dr. Ananda, please.
Thank you, Tharunji. Just a quick question. I understand the normal distribution. So in the normal distribution bell curve, I
Yes.
want to know that in the median, where it goes to the maximum, is that point where you got the maximum mental activity or thoughts, and
Yes,
when you're
yes, that's normal day-to-day activity, like around anywhere between 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. when I'm operating on a normal day. That's when the peak of my physical brain at a peak, and then it stops. It's a random movement based on how my brain waves have been measured during the day. Okay, so this is like I take every 1 hour, I sit there, put the machine, the Muse is the machine, I put it on my head, and then I take the reading, how much is my brain wave, track it in an Excel sheet, and then I leave it. Every 1 hour, I make sure, not during my sleep hours, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, like 12 or 1, put it on my head, measure the amount of brain waves, and then I slowly collated the data and then applied the randomness on it, which is normal distribution. But my problem is life force particle is not random. It's not random. It has no randomness, as Ashwinji said. Geometric Brownian motion, you introduce this randomness. That's why they try to fit into the bell curve. Here, it's not bell. When I was trying to remove the randomness and introduce the particle, it actually converts it into a circle. It did not become the bell curve. It converts into a circle. But I don't have enough data to prove that life force particle and life force that happens has no randomness into circles. So that's where I'm trying and struggling right now. Sorry, we are 7 minutes into our session and MERIA is there. So please, we'll go back into our life force particle sexual vital fluid today. But that's where my working towards, and that's the reason why I've been avoiding explaining things to people, because I'm not to a point where I cannot say how this random bell curve, which is what mathematically is known, converges into a circle, and then slowly it merges into something zero. So that's where my struggle is right now. So it's a long process, but with everybody's help and blessings, we probably might come to something. So.
Yeah, I may have a lot of thoughts along the line. Someday we will talk.
Yes, definitely.
At a personal level, not in a group like this.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so we'll go into our next session. Life force particle MERIA is there, and I don't know. Amma is there. Vijayalakshmi Amma, you here or yeah, you're there? Please start the next session, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tharunji and Ashwinji. To utilize the Muse tool, very good manner. Thank you so much. I just kept as it is. Even I bought that a long time back.
Thank you.
I gave it to my kids.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, thank you so much. Aya is here. India, வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
Do we have the meditation?
Yeah, we did the meditation and then we had the satsang followed in here. So if you want, we can do a quick one too. It's up to you.
Right. A quick one.
Okay, sure. We'll do a quick Turiya meditation. Sit back,
Yes.
relax, everyone.